Apocalypse Gaming.
Okay, my friends, what my next objective is to build the Zeppelin component of Thunderchild. So again, taking Terrainaholic's advice, I've drew out a small plan of what I'm looking to do. It turns out my plans tend not to be exact though, even though I'm using scale paper, but it gives me something to work with. So I've drew out a dodecagon, which is a 12-sided shape with equal sides for the long view. And for the side profile, this is the sort of shape that I'm hoping to end up with, or along that sort of Zeppelin-ish sort of ideas. So I'm going to use wire to create my shapes. The type of wire I'm using is floral accessories wire for helping making floral decorations. It's quite a stiff wire, and I've started making the shapes. So these ones here are some of my dodecagons cut to various sizes. I have a 3cm side, a 2cm side and a 1cm side. These currently can open and close, but I've started soldering some together so that I can make the structure fully assembled and then put my outer skin onto it. So that's where it's at the minute. Next shots will be possibly me soldering it together, or the structure together, depending on where I can get the footage to work and not burn my camera. Apologise for my weak soldering skills. It's not something I claim to be an expert at, but that's me got a join that's serviceable. It's going to be covered up anyway, and I'll do a little bit of filing just to take it down. So as it's going to take a bit of time to do this, I'm going to cut here and I'll come back and show you what the other parts will look like once I've got it all soldered together. Thanks for your patience. Okay guys, what I'm having to do here is try to hold together the frame with green stuff. I have tried soldering it several times and my soldering skills just ain't that clever, so each part of the frame I'm going to have to hold together using green stuff, and hopefully that method will work. What we have here is the first part of the frame set up on green stuff. We had to do this, as I've said, because my soldering skills aren't the greatest and I couldn't get this baby to stay together through solder, so I've resorted to green stuff to hold the frame. Now I'll add another wire doing the same process again. It's slung under two clamps. Holes in the side of the clamps just allowed the wire to go through, which allowed me to rest each of these on top and attach the green stuff. Alright my friends, this then is where I'm at with the Zeppelin frame. Just now I would say it's heading for a complete and utter fail. First tried holding it together with solder. The solder hasn't worked, so I'm now trying to tack together using green stuff. I have some of the points green stuffed and some of the wires in place. The shape itself is not holding to the shape that I wanted it to, but once all these green stuff joints have set, I'll try and bend this towards the correct shape and tack in the other joints before adding more wires. But just now my brain's starting to rattle off and think in other directions how to actually do this Zeppelin, because if this fails I need to come up with a new solution. Alright folks, I'm not going to touch this because it's setting up, but from the jaws of defeat I think I've managed to salvage more of the shape of the frame. It's been a case of letting one or two spars dry up at a time until there was enough of a solid framework where I could put the last 6 spars in place. So the green stuff just now needs to be left alone and let set, and then I'll try and just twist and turn some bits of metal just to get the rest of the frame shape together. Next I'm going to show you now where this frame is up to. You've already seen it fully green stuffed. I have added some coffee stirrers across the frame because that's where I'm going to attach wings, which are almost impossible to see because it's clear perspex that I've salvaged from pen holders, so they'll get attached on. Once they're attached on, that's going to support the outermost propellers. They are going in conduit tubing, which this style here, except it starts off fully circular, and I have cut that into these sort of shapes, which are going to encase the propellers. I also have green stuffed a gyrocopter propeller for fitting on the rear. So I'll show you all these things in place next. This is the first set of fins attached to the framework. So I stuck my coffee stirrers down to the frame, trimmed it back, and I've now got the perspex glued down and hanging off. Used these to create a solid framework so that this would have something to stick to. So that's the next stage. Okay guys, I'm going to find out if we're going to have a fail or a win here. The casings for the propellers aren't particularly holding to the right shape even when releasing the clamps. So what I've did is I have put sprue onto it, glued it in position to try and hold it in roughly the sort of shape I'm looking for, because that's also going to be the propeller mount. So I'm going to find out now when I release the clamps whether that holds or whether the glue pops. Let's find out how good Gorilla Glue is. One's holding. Two's holding. That was a surprise, I actually thought it was going to pop. So that's me get the casing, and into that I will fit the propeller. Trying to go for an Avatar style look with these propellers. Maybe I won't fit because I don't think it's going in. Yeah, it is. So I'll fit that into there, and that'll allow my propellers to spin. But I want to paint that up before I put it in. Hope I can get it back out now. Okay, that's my propellers, propulsion systems drying up. I've still got a sepia wash drying on the main blade, but just to give you an idea of what these things are beginning to look like, I have the main blade for the back, I have the smaller blades which will fit into the parts here. These I have hit up with brass, bronze and gold, and then tried to give them a verdigris nature as well, which I'm not sure if you can see or not. Yeah, you can just pick that up. So that's them, and this will fit inside there. Okay, what I'm showing you here, guys, is 2 shelves that are integral to the Zeppelin, which will be out of sight once it's complete. These are going to attach to the hull, so this is going to be where the hull comes up and joins to the Zeppelin. These are going to be hidden inside, as I say. What I have is coffee stirrers running one direction, another layer running perpendicular, and then a third layer on top running in the same direction as the original. So it's one this direction, one that direction, and then one this direction on both layers. I want these areas to be strong, so it's either side of the wire frame, is where I've positioned them, because this is going to hold the entire weight of the Zeppelin when it's complete, so I don't want this coming apart. I want it to be as strong as possible. I'm using the section which held the wings together, and I've put a second section further forward. So those two sections should hopefully be strong enough to hold the framework in place. Just now they are just setting up with tacky glue to hold them in place. They were glued to the wire with super glue, and then the wood itself is getting glued together with tacky glue. So the pegs are just holding that in place to let it dry. This one here will get trimmed down once that's fully set as well. Okay, next part of this process is bending some brass rod. I'm having to do this to fit it into the steam generator. I need a hot and I need a cold pipe, one up, one down to the Zeppelin, to try and simulate the steam going up and steam coming back down through the recycling of the internals, which you don't see. So to do that accurately, you need a rod bender. These rod benders are basically springs gauged to certain sizes. I've got various different ones depending on the size of the brass rod that I'm using. What you do is you take your heat source, heat the metal where you're looking to bend it so it doesn't just crack away. Slide this over the top. I've marked it where the centre is so I know, and then bend away. You then need to immerse it in cold water just to set the metal and make it hard again. I'm not going to do this on camera. It's difficult enough to do it as it is without the pressure of the lens, but I'm just showing you the next part of the process. Next part of the process will be to drill the side of the casing on both sides, roughly there. Bend the pipe to the appropriate size down below, and have the pipe coming out of the casing, round and resting on here for it to go up. So that's the first brass rod into the side of the tank, running up and coming up here, and the second one will do the same. Okay guys, this here is a brass rod cutter. Another thing, I'm not going to show you how exactly it works on camera because it takes far too long to go through the process, but I've invested in this rather than using the Dremel because I'm looking for exceptionally clean cuts, and the Dremel, as what you saw, wasn't giving clean cuts. Essentially, you take this, tighten it into the block, and just keep spinning the tool round or spinning the brass rod round, and it eventually cuts round and gives a very nice neat cut. Okay chaps, that's both brass rods now attached and coming out of the steam tank. But what I'm going to have to do is, because the length of this brass rod is now reduce it in height. I don't want to reduce it in height completely though, because I'm going to bend this. Where you see the black marks is where I want to put the bend, and at the top is where my rod bender is going to be, because I'm trying to make sure I've got an even bend on both. So I'm going to use these to attach to the support decks that I've already shown you. Okay guys, just to give you an idea of how these brass rods are going to work as supports, I've now sat the Zeppelin on top so you can see they undersling the shelf that I've built, so they'll get glued on there, and to this other one a mast will come down to the deck into roughly where my finger's pointing. So obviously this will need pulled back and forward a little bit just to get it set up perfectly, but that's the theory, and I've just broke it. That's the theory. Central mast I have now got ready to install. Might need to reduce the height of it slightly. I've already cut it down. I'll check size as I go along. But the first thing I had to do was notch and angle the top. Really difficult to see this, so let's try a bit of zoom and see if that will help. There we go. So I've filed this down to a slight angle because of the angle that's attaching to my platform, and filed a notch because that's one of the wire frames will sit through that, so I had to notch that just so it slipped through rather than bending the frame further out of shape. and that will glue to the base. Other side, once I've got it to the right height, glues into the deck. I'm going to drill the centre of this and put a pin in it so it pins into the deck just so it's a stronger fixture. What you see here is my pin drill into the deck. This is where the mast is going to be placed. So I've just drilled the deck so that this will now be securely locked in place because it's going to take a lot of weight on 3 points.
Apocalypse Gaming.